the way they want, get 50,000, click out, because it's your money. We have a Bill of Rights on economic rights. So government has a duty to ensure that citizens have access to economic rights and freedom. So in that end, government is responsible whether how you can get your economic rights. But if you can get it through accessing these Fuleza, just Fuleza 50,000, then change your PIN. It's your money. So because on the other hand, you see people misappropriating government money, but these are case of citizens who are accessing their money. So yeah, I always tell people, build your profile the way they want and then access your money. It's your money. Otherwise, for today, I will stop at that. Yeah, and let other people to talk.
Okay, Moses, asante sana. Before nipatie Stone PK nafasi, Duke, I went back to my archives and I pulled the numbers here. So when William Ruto went to South Korea the other day, he was given 1 billion USD. 1 billion USD is about 122 billion, unless hesabu yangu ni mbaya. Is that right? Then Afrexim, AFREXIM Bank gave William Ruto and his government, he borrowed, let me say he borrowed 366 billion from Afrexim Bank. William Ruto also borrowed 433 million USD from IMF. I'm giving you the numbers. I have them here. Nakwanga nimeandika. Every loan I see William Ruto akipewa ninaandikanga chini. So I do my math. I'm keeping track of the borrowing of the Kenya Kwanza government. And last week, the World Bank was about to sign off a loan to the Kenyan government of 92 billion Kenyan shillings. So do your math. These are just the loans zenye nimepata sahi. Do your math and tell me how much is that.
You see, that's like almost 1 trillion Kenyan money.
No, it's not.
So
like,
are you trying to say
it's not like almost 1 trillion? It's not like,
yes,
it's
it is
past
that.
1 trillion.
So are you trying to say at that rate, in a year we will be able to borrow like 6 trillion, and then within a term like that trillion? Is that actually that confirms that is fake?
No, why am I saying that? Why am I saying that? I'm not the one who is borrowing money. This is why are you are saying it's fake, and you said you don't have the figures. Listen,
you have
Duke, I told you here. What I do is this. Before I come to this show, I do my research. And if you say the figures that I'm giving you are fake, then you need to counter with figures that you have. That is how it works. I did my research, and I'm telling you, and I'm mentioning even the bank. I'm mentioning the bank. I'm telling you, William Ruto got 122 billion Kenyan shillings from the South Korean government. Confirm. Google there. Kama uko na Google hapo. Number 2, William Ruto got 366 billion Kenyan shillings from Afrexim. AFREXIM. Afrexim Bank. 366 billion Kenyan shillings. William Ruto has borrowed 92 billion from the World Bank. William Ruto has borrowed 433 million US dollars from the IMF. If these numbers that I'm giving you are fake, then come with a counter of kuja na counter numbers and you to argue from there. But you cannot just dismiss my hard work for your ignorance. Let me use that word.
Okay, let me respond. Give me time, I respond. Number 1, I'm just trying to interpret that, because I don't have actual figures, because yes, you have said you've done research, but I think that you should scrutinize your sources, because provided that we are almost at the edge of our remit, because there is a remit in which the GDP, the borrowing must be a ratio of your GDP or a percentage of your GDP. We are almost at the remit. I don't think that provided that it will be able to do that within within we are actually like 2 months. I don't think that is. However, what I can say is this: maybe you are confusing borrowing and investment, because Ruto said is going to implement what you call investment oriented partnership, whereby, for instance, if maybe a given country or bank, which is foreign country, want to invest in Kenya, will come and actually do a specific project, and then from that it will be able to run that project for like maybe 10 to 20 years. Then maybe it will recover its investment under some reasonable profit. Then after that, it will become part of the government. So maybe you are confusing between the two, and that is the right way to know, because when maybe the actual investors manages their investment, there actually will be prudent management, and then we will not be forced to repay that, but because they will manage it and get the profit from the project which they have come up with. I don't think that because those figures don't make sense at all, because you're trying to say that within 2 months is able to borrow like over $1 trillion. So if you translate in a year, that's like in 1 year you would be able to borrow what the Uhuru administration was able to borrow in 10 years. No, that I don't agree with that at all. So that's why I say you have to scrutinize your sources.
So Duke, you are dismissing. You are dismissing whatever Makiadi is sharing with you, because because it doesn't favor your narrative. But the truth of the matter, if you are a wise man, you'll have taken time to counter check than dismiss the facts.
You know, Google, you can find all sorts of information. Actually, a lot of information contradicts.
Just check.
Unless maybe Makiadi, can you give us
even the government sites? Just check the government sites. You will find the information you need.
I'm requesting Makiadi maybe to give us that is for what. For example, 1.2 billion from South Korea is for what? Because when somebody gives you money, it must be for the specific project or something. For example, there was the borrowing for the construction of STL for maybe the Nairobi Expressway. Can you specify maybe what was the proposal for? Because before you have been given money, you must actually give a proposal of what you are going to do with that money. Maybe if you give details of that.
Duke, unfortunately, the one thing that I will never do on this show is come here, give numbers, and then you come here and counteract my numbers with hot air, and you expect me again to go back and bring you evidence. I did my research. I came with the numbers. These numbers are correct. You don't have to go any far to look for these numbers. These numbers are the numbers that Ruto ametoka kwa mkutano na mkubwa ya World Bank, wakapigwa picha hapo, akasema this is the money that you are trying to borrow from World Bank. These are the numbers that come from the Kenyan State House, from Kenyan State House, directly from State House. So these are not numbers zenye mimi ninatoka nazo mahali ninaziandika because I want to prove a point against William Ruto. No, I don't do that. And I told you, Duke, you just given us the public debt here, Kenyan public debt that stands at about, when I did your math, it came to about roughly 9.8. Let's give it 10 trillion Kenyan shillings. But then Nabi here is talking about our borrowing is almost what? He said that our borrowing is almost 8 trillion shillings. Roughly 8. So I'll give you $1 trillion is not pocket change. So assuming you are wrong or you are right, Because from your numbers, I would take that if Kibaki had a debt of, let's say, 3 trillion or something, and then I add your numbers here to about 9.8, then we will be looking at public debt of about, let's say, roughly 12 trillion shillings. But the numbers that you are giving us, Mr. Duke, mimi sijui ni World Bank, ni website gani hiyo unasema umepata hizi numbers, because I'm trying to look for these numbers everywhere. Na hizi numbers zako, they don't add up. Just like you came to counter my numbers with hot air, is the same way your public debt thing does not add up. It is either these numbers tunga, you've just decided wacha nipatia watu kitu ya kuonyesha kwamba I know what I'm saying, ndio wajue hata mimi ninafanya homework. Wacha usikie nabii ile kitu anaongea hapa. Dakika moja tu ni kupatie hii nini yako moja hapa on the borrowing of the Kenyan government here.
Thank you for the money you always provide whenever we come to the market. You're also aware that our borrowing is now in the region of almost 8 trillion. And we are now spending almost 60% of our revenues on paying debt. That's not a very good place to be. I don't want to say you have urged us on to borrow more because you need a place to invest your savings. But I also want us to agree, because I undertook to the people of Kenya that we have to relook at our debt situation as a country. And that is the reason why I have instructed the Ministry of Finance to work with all the other ministries so that we can shave off 300 billion shillings from this budget of this year. It's not a simple assignment. It's not an easy thing to do, but I promise you we will do it because it's the right thing to do.
Aya, ngoja kidogo tu hapo. Dakika moja. We keep the receipts here, Duke.
Deputy President William Ruto is expected to present his papers before IEBC Saturday. And his Kenya Kwanza counterparts today took their bottom-up economic model to Nairobi County.
Tutapanga ajira ya vijana ama vyeo ya viongozi? Tutakopa teni ama kwanza tutafuta pesa ya kuzalisha chakula tuondoe njaa? Si jameni, tuondoe njaa kwanza.
66 days to the March anticipated 2022 election, and his team, among them his running mate Rigathi Gachagua, made several stopovers in Kamulu, Ruai, Utawala, campaigning for their formation.
Tarehe 9 mwezi wa 8 mwaka huu, miezi miwili imesalia, ni lazima tujikomboe, tujiondoe kwa hali ya hatari. Tuko pamoja? Na suluhisho ni nani?
The Kenya Kwanza team took a swipe to President Uhuru Kenyatta over what they termed as continued borrowing, accusing the Jubilee government of plunging the country into debt, saying it had raised the cost of living.
Wale majamaa wa kuzimia ati wanataka kuendelea ati kukopa pesa, ati wanataka kuendelea na capital intensive projects ambayo inafaidi watu wachache. Tunataka tuwaambie hii serikali ya mahasla, tutabadilisha hiyo maneno. Tutawachana na kukopa pesa, tutatafuta investment. tutawachana na capital intensive programs, tutatafuta labor intensive program.
Kwa hivyo yeye akiingia, madeni itapanda, bei ya mafuta itapanda, bei ya unga itapanda, bei ya school fees itapanda, bei ya healthcare itapanda. Yeye anasema lazima aendelee vile rais anayestaafu anafanya.
Siku hizi unakopa ndio uende ukalipe mkopo, kwa sababu maisha yamekuwa magumu sana. Wale jamaa wa kuzimia, si nilikuwa huko, hawana mpango mwingine wa Kenya, wanataka kuendeleza Kenya vile imeendelezwa na ile serikali iko. Kumaanisha ya kwamba maisha yako hayatabadilika, maisha yataendelea tu vile vile.
Njia ya kupunguza bei ya vyakula ni kufukuza mtu ya kitendawili na kuweka William Ruto ndio tupunguze bei ya chakula. Tuko tayari.
At the same time, they pledge that they will ensure that the common Kenya accumulates wealth, saying it will help solve the ever-present unemployment issue facing the youth. After drumming up support for the bottom-up...
Ndugu yangu Duke, wakati mlifukuza mtu wa kitendawili mliteremsha chakula.
You see, first of all, you have to differentiate between politics and facts. Sometimes all politicians make political statements. That's number one. Number two, about the figures of the Kenyan debt. Actually, if you scrutinize it, what is happening is that the government of Kenya, or the previous government, was not including internal debt. So, for example, there are Kenyans who have bought government securities or government bonds, and they must be repaid with interest. So the government of Kenya sometimes does not include that. So if you include that, actually, I'm going to post a link from the Central Bank of Kenya right now. And then if you have to factor the internal borrowing, then it's not 8.8 trillion. 8.8 trillion is like external. That's from. But we have a significant amount which is internal debt in terms of bonds and securities, where Kenyan companies, Kenyan banks, and Kenyan individuals have given money to the government. So that's what I can say. But there is something which the president said, that he wants to have something which we call the investment approach. It means that maybe you go to a given country, if you go, for example, instead of taking money from China to construct the SGR, you talk to China, you tell it, come construct SGR, and then you will correct the fees or those who are using it for maybe 20 years. So that means Kenyans will benefit in a way, but they don't have to repay that. That has an advantage because they will actually repay themselves using Kenyan money. You know, we take debt in terms of dollars. For example, maybe when we constructed the Thika Superhighway, the value of $1 was like 80 something, like 83 Kenyan shillings, something of that kind. Now it's like 125. So now we are repaying like 55 shillings more per dollar, and you have not factored in the interest rate. So that's actually why the borrowing is becoming very expensive, because the inflation of the Kenyan shilling cannot go hand in hand with the inflation of the USD. So it's prudent for you to allow foreign investors or foreign countries or to come to invest themselves, and they will get profit from their investment. So they are repaying themselves in terms of the selling their services or products which they have, managing it in, for example, we can say in 20, 30 years, and then they will recover their money, and then the project will belong to the government. I think that's the right approach which we can use, because they say that every borrowing we make, we will pay it more than double. You can imagine that. If somebody gives you 2 million and tells me you give me 24, that's extreme. So that's what I can say.
Yeah, a quick question for you, Duke. You talk about bonds by Kenyan citizens as a form of government debt. When you prepare your balance sheet, where do you put your bonds? Whether it's international debt or it's local debt, where do you put your bonds? Is it under the column of assets, liabilities, stockholders, or equity? Where do you put that? Whether it doesn't matter whether it's a local debt or international debt, kwa nini, kwa balance sheet tutaiweka wapi?
Number one, I'm not an accountant, but I know that debt of a country includes foreign and domestic. So the debt of countries, domestic debt plus foreign debt. So where it should be placed in a balance sheet, that's the work of the accountant.
Yeah, because the reason why I'm asking you this question is because you said that something roughly 8 trillion is external debt. And so you're telling us that this debt does not include the debt by the government, I mean, the internal debt, what the government owes Kenyans, Palindani, you know, what the government borrowed from Kenyans themselves. So I'm asking you, if you are getting these numbers from the central bank website, then there is no way you can have these numbers from external debt only listed as what the Kenyan government owes people without including the local debt. It is not possible because liabilities are liabilities, Bwana Duke. Whether umekopa kwa ndugu yako ama umekopa kwa employer wako, it is a liability. You have to pay. So if
yes,
yes.
I'm not disputing the figures in the central bank website, and I'm going to share a link here. What I'm disputing is the figures which you have actually projected here of politician stating specific figures. So I'm saying maybe when they were stating those figures, they were not including the internal debt. And this issue has been raised by many economists, actually even Indeed talked about that, whereby the Kenyan government is intentionally sometimes does not specify the internal debt because of the parliament sharing. So they want the parliament sharing to be subject to only to external borrowing, not internal borrowing. Because if they include internal and external, maybe the parliament sharing will prevent them from borrowing. That's where we have the issue.
All right, I'll get back to you. I just like the way you keep on flip-flopping. At one point you come up with a debt number, at the other point you say you are not disputing that number because you don't have a figure yet. The other point you come with a number from the central bank. But Duke, just a point of information, when the government produces its balance sheet, if it has to list the debt that it has, it doesn't matter whether it's in terms of bond or in terms of external borrowing, a liability is a liability to the government. And so there is no way ever you would come with a debt and list that debt on your balance sheet as an asset. It doesn't work that way. It is a liability. So if you give me a link that doesn't have the numbers that you're telling me about, you know, it's very simple. Everybody knows that Parliament, with the help of the likes of Kimani Ichung'wah and Adan Duale and all the rest, the people that were in the leadership of Parliament lifted the ceiling of our borrowing. Everybody knows that. We have the evidence. So if William Ruto was not part of this, then I don't know who should be blamed for that. But I'll leave that there because we'll still have this conversation moving forward. Mise, habari yako, nakuona umeingia. Good to see you. And I think I'll give Moses Serikal a few minutes and then nikuje kwako Mise. Stone PK, sijui kama uko na sisi ama uko kwa simu bado. I think Stone PK yuko busy kidogo. Let's go to Moses.
Yeah.
Then, yeah.
So yeah, Duke, Richie, what Duke was talking about, alluding, in terms of domestic financing, the issue of treasury bills and bonds, it's about 579, yeah, 517, 580 to 190 billion. So that, yeah, 582, 190 billion. That's the total net domestic financing. That includes the treasury bonds. So yeah, I think that is done. So if you look at this number and then you look at the current debts, then yeah, it should take us somewhere. So if you take this number, add to the current debt plus the debt that Ruto is currently taking in the name of I don't know, it was they have been saying that Ruto wanted to reduce the debt. So what is currently happening is Kenya Kwanza is, in fact, they are accumulating more debt than even the previous governments, because we are down 2 months, about 2 months, and the government has borrowed over 1.5 trillion. That's a lot. And currently we've been seeing President Ruto launching projects, complete projects which were which they implemented which they implemented with Uhuru Kenyatta. At one end, anasema ati that government did nothing. On the other hand, is launching the completion of those projects, the dams, housing projects. Yeah, some of them he's been walking around and trying to launch. So the amount of deceitfulness, and it's very sad how people even come on this platform with the same narrative, not ready to dig deep and look at what are the alternative information that are available, or try to understand from various point of view. So yeah, at times it's kind of at times it makes us not to take some of these people serious when people are not having that open mind to try and put things in their rightful place, but they tend to look at their political persuasion rather than try to use this platform to advocate or lobby for issues that eventually will have a greater impact to the general public. So yeah, at times we do sympathize with people with that kind of mindset. Lastly, I think, lastly, when we look at what's happening, like I don't see anything new that Ruto administration is doing except trying to tell people about the lies and propagating the ill. Like they use the handshake to cover up some of their mess. That is what they do. They don't want to take responsibility over anything. Currently, the current regime is almost the same as the previous one. They are looking for money to borrow left, right, and center, and we are not seeing anything new that is being done. Like the best they could do is the Fuliza scheme that they have launched recently, and Fuliza existed even without government intervention. How do you take government money to start a Fuliza? Honestly, the role of the government is to provide an enabling environment for people to do business and thrive. If there are people if there are investors who are doing that business, let them be. Let the government, if there is any issue in terms of high interest rates, the government needs to come up with a legislation. We need to have a policy. We need to bring central bank to advise on how do we caution people, or how do we have favorable interest rates, not this nonsense called Fuliza. Fuliza, that should be for private sector to do. And yeah, there's no way you can take government money. You can take public money and give it back to the public with a interest. How do you give people a loan of 500 or 1,000? How? I think it's a waste of time. It's a waste of public resources. It's a waste of human resource. If you are deploying government officers to even follow up these funds, it's very pathetic. Yeah, I think I raised my case for now.
Aya, asante sana Moses. Naona Duke amepotea, sijui aliogopa utampiga mawe ama namna gani, lakini atarudi tu. Duke, kuja hapa, acha kutoroka. Kukiwaka moto, Misi amekuja kukuokoa, so at least you have a partner, you have a shoulder here to lean on. Mise, bari ya wewe bana ndugu yangu. We have a menu that is full here, so if you want to pick a plate, sijui utaanzia wapi. Uwanja ni wako.
Serikali. Habari yako bwana, sijakuona for long. Uko salama?
Niko salama Mise.
Nitu
shughuli.
Tuko salama. While you were away, mimi na my partner Revolution, we turned to be revolutionists, Stone PK na Rich Makiadi. How are you? Stone PK, unajua naendelea kupiga mpango pale kando kando, but mimi nimekuja kusikiza kwanza. Ningependa kusikiza ndio nipate kuchangia, but before that kuna swali huyu Duke amewauliza na hamkumjibu. Makiadi, haukumjibu, you just dismissed it, na swali ilikuwa very simple. When Kibaki took office, and when he left office, and the new government took over, were there any debts ambazo wali inherit from the previous government, or were there other debts that were inherited with Kibaki's government? You didn't answer that question. I would like to hear how you would like to answer that question before I proceed.
Yeah, thank you, Missy. I think on the issue of debt, we've exhaustively talked about that, and I think I've never heard Kibaki talking about the debt that he inherited from Moi. As a matter of fact, I think I never heard Kibaki saying that he inherited a dilapidated economy. I never heard Kibaki saying that wakati alichukua serikali chakula ilikuwa imeisha kwa store, panya zikapotea. I saw a man who was determined to do his job. And whether he had a debt or not, Kibaki performed according to the level that he thinks he did, without blaming anybody. The reason why we have a problem with Nabi and his deputy is because these people are the same people that are complaining about borrowing in the previous government, which they were part of, number one. Number two, they complained about borrowing, and within a month or so, almost 2 months now, Nabi and his deputy have managed to borrow close to 1 trillion, not even close, over 1 trillion Kenyan shillings. So I find it hypocritical for UDA supporters to come here and lecture us here about prudent use of money, how well they are placed in terms of economic development, while at the back of their mind, they know that there is nothing that they are doing differently from what Uhuru Kenyatta did. So I don't think the issue about Kibaki and debt is really important, because Kibaki himself came into office with a worse economy than what Uhuru Kenyatta left to William Ruto and Rigathi Gachagua. Actually, not even left. To an economy that William Ruto and Uhuru Kenyatta left to William Ruto and Rigathi Gachagua. I think that English now sounds better. So the economy that William Ruto picked up from Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto was worse than what Daniel Arap Moi left to Mwai Kibaki. So me say, the numbers are not important here when it comes to the issue of Kibaki. The most important thing is, was Kibaki able to perform without the hula baloo that we see every day? The answer is yes. He revived the economy of the Republic of Kenya. He did not have he did not have a day where we would see him running around the country pointing fingers at his predecessor. All he did was he sat down, he worked. He never came out kupiga kelele kila siku vile anakata ribbons and all that commissioning of projects. He never did that, but we saw his work. And that is what we are claiming here every day. We want to tell Nabii and his deputy, please stop the side shows. Wachana na hii makelele mingi mnazunguka kila weekend mkipiga kwa makanisa huko na maombi nini mkituambia mlipata economy iko dilapidated. If you are not really ready to run this country, the best thing you can do right now is quit. There's no point of telling us to give you time to revive an economy that you are part of. There's no point. Otherwise tutajiita wajinga, na mlituambia kwamba wajinga waliisha Kenya. Kama mlipata serikali ikiwa mbaya na mumeona ya kwamba hamwezi revive, it is your responsibility to give up and go home. Otherwise you are wasting our time. Asante Mise. I think you can take it from there.
Yeah, thank you. So I won't dwell on that, but just want to, I was looking through the documentation here to at least so that we can have a meaningful debate and discussion, so that we don't just say things that we cannot support. So for me, I think that question that that gentleman who left asked was very, very key. And I want to support it with some evidence that when President Daniel Moi left office, Kibaki, the debt of Kenya stood at 629 million. And at a 60% of GDP. And when Kibaki left, he borrowed actually he borrowed more, 1.79 trillion. The only thing Kibaki did, he extended the economy, and he put the debt at 41%. He reduced it from 60% to 41%. Now, when William Ruto's, not William Ruto, but Uhuru Kenyatta's government got into power, they borrowed more, especially in 2013, and even Parliament tried to intervene to control the power of the government borrowing. So, what I'm thinking here is, in a accounting language, we are talking about balance. You talked, actually, Sue was talking about the balance sheet. Now, the balance sheet has balance carried forward, and the date, the assets, liabilities, and at the time when you're closing and balancing and having a balance sheet, you must have the debt, or if you have a surplus, it will indicate either to the negative or to the positive. So the question that you were asked, that you arbitrarily or casually dismissed, is that there was debt that was carried forward. And one thing I want to agree with you, I like the way you put it at the end in your conclusion, that Kibaki did not complain. Kibaki did not spend a lot of time talking how much he had inherited. He went straight to work and ensured that he had created or made an impact. And I think for me, the attitude that you're talking about is what we should we expect from this government, so that they can have a positive attitude as opposed to having negative attitude. But you Moses, you were talking about Fuliza, and you were talking about Fuliza and Hustler Fund. So the difference between Fuliza and Hustler Fund, and that's why Hustler Fund is a government and cannot be equated to a private lender. The money that you're getting from the private lender is that there are few things that you would come to appreciate that Fuliza brings with if the limits are increased and well managed. For example, you are talking about Fuliza. The interest rate of Fuliza is 50%. Okay, the interest rate of Hustler Fund is 8%. So, and the Hustler Fund, once you borrow, there is a pattern that is encouraging you to save. And that money can be available for you if you don't owe anything. So that is basically that's basically the difference, Duke. Moses. The problem that I too have with the Hustler Fund is that the money, the amount that they have given is so insignificant. I hope that they will increase the limit so that it can be meaningful to so that there will be meaningful when you borrow, and you can use it and turn around when it comes to business. But more importantly, that is what I wanted to talk about borrowing. I think, Makiadi, if you allow me to stop there for now, unless you have a question.
Miss, I do not have a question for you because I think the issue of borrowing is something that we can have a discussion for a whole night here with you. But of more importance is borrowing good for our country? Then I think the answer would be yes, if the money borrowed was put into good use. There we will agree, whether you are Kenya Kwanza or you are UDA or you are ODM. If the money was borrowed and then put into good use, then nobody would be complaining, because we would see the infrastructure, on the ground. And so Kenyans would see value for their money. But unfortunately, it is a precedent that has been there for governments ever since time immemorial, whereby people borrow money, and instead of using the money that they borrowed to do the work that they borrowed for, they end up spending the money in other unplanned programs that do not benefit Mwananchi. But let me see.
Can I say something as well, actually?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. So now that let me address something that is in something that actually about Mudavadi. Let me address this myself to Mudavadi. Gives up 2027 to President Ruto. I think if there is a wise politician whom I've come to admire, is Mudavadi. I think Mudavadi remarks are of wisdom, because he actually likened, let's talk about his sentiments towards in recent sentiments about Francis Atwoli. Mudavadi said some things that I actually have been reflecting, and I found that they were very wise. You know, he said that Francis Atwoli is a wise person, a wise man, because he found that in the history of Kenyan politics and politicians, the one Francis Atwoli is a very pragmatic politician. Why? Because in Mudavadi's words, he says that Francis Atwoli is a politician who makes and who thinks on the spot and makes decisions on the spot. And he also goes on saying that Francis Atwoli reads the time instantly and makes decisions instantly. And he reads the direction of change, and guess what? He makes a decision in order to allow things happen. So I think what Musalia was talking about, I think he says that Kenya has become a laughing stock. Kenya watu wanatuchekelea as our country, and he appealed and said that you and me and other Kenyans are the key participants to make or encourage and support this government to work. And I think this is something that our other opponents are lacking. There is time and season for everything. I like what other people are saying, that Ruto should get down to work. I think he should do more. He's overstaying. And I think by overstaying and bringing a lot of reforms that are not actually geared towards improving the livelihood of a common mwananchi, I think is dangerous, and resistance will be justified. I think that's what I wanted to say. And I also noted that Francis Atwoli agreed and said that the new Baba of the Republic of Kenya is now William Samoei Ruto, and we must support him in his words. And this is the Francis Atwoli who was saying, "Watu wakate miti kule Sugoi." So I think that's what I'm thinking, that other politicians should follow the dialogue. The sentiments of Musalia Mudavadi are basically appealing to the public for a unit of purpose, that we should not talk about 2027. We should be talking about now and the issues that are affecting our people now, because we should address now before we get tomorrow. And I think that's what I wanted to contribute, that Musalia Mudavadi is a wise person. He knows that in 48 laws of power, you have to conceal your intentions. Even if he has intentions to front himself as a presidential candidate in 2027, he has concealed those intentions, and he also doesn't want to outsmart his master, because he will create more chaos as opposed to what we expect from them. So I think Musalia Mudavadi is a wise person, and I think all people should follow, and even Baba the Gone should also follow that and try to bring the unity together. To bring the country together, as opposed to divisiveness and politics of divisiveness. Thank you.
Missy, I'm still wondering when you discovered Mudavadi is a pragmatic politician. I'm still wondering. Maybe you made that.
It's Atwoli who is a pragmatic politician.
And Mudavadi is a wise politician, you said, right?
Wise, but is wise, but he's a coward, and cowards live longer.
Okay. All right. Guru, nakuona umeingia. Guru ameamka, ametupata hapa studio. Haya, dakika moja kwanza nichezee mise video nyingine hapa, alafu nitakupatia nafasi uongee in 1 minute. Here.
Tonight, President William Ruto is under sharp scrutiny as he appears to reintroduce the BBI, Building Bridges Initiative, through a letter to the Speakers of the National Assembly and Senate. Ruto has proposed the introduction of the Office of the Opposition Leader and reformation of the Constituency Development Fund. NTV's Brian Obuya now reports on what appears to be systemic doublespeak by President William Ruto.
President William Ruto is viewed as a man slowly becoming most things he opposed. Ruto's latest move to support the creation of the office of the Leader of Official Opposition has come under sharp criticism. The Law Society of Kenya President Eric Theuri saying the president is on a dazzling race to mutilate the constitution even before the ink dries on the oath he took to defend it. Ruto, in a 9-page memorandum, made 4 proposals to the speakers of the House, one of them proposing the creation of the office of the official leader of opposition, saying it will cure a constitutional shortfall on the full post-election fate of the minority side. Constitutional lawyer Charles Kanjama says that President Ruto is subjecting the country to a pared-down version of BBI, wondering if tenancy at State House changes a person's character and mindset. Once exiled lawyer Miguna challenging the Ruto administration, saying that for the avoidance of doubt, there is nothing wrong with the constitution, that it only requires honest and consistent implementation, application and respect. Activist Waikwa Wanyoike, in what appears to be a promising legal battle against President Ruto's proposals by the civil society, says that any amendment on 2/3 gender rule, leader of opposition or CDF, must constitutionally be subjected to a referendum. But this is not the only hurdle Ruto faces. His proposal would likely be left to fate should it be challenged in court. The High Court had ruled that the president cannot initiate a popular initiative, and with that, the Building Bridges initiative fell for good. But Ruto is mostly under fire for being the man who vehemently rejected any constitutional amendments, arguing that there was more to deal with than the politics of the time. It almost became his campaign rallying call.
Ati wanasema tubadilishe katiba kwanza, tuongeze mamlaka ya rais, tuongeze vyeo ya viongozi, sijui tuendelee na rege. Mimi nimewaambia, wacheni mambo ya viongozi na mamlaka na vyeo. Ngojeni kwanza tupange uchumi ili vijana hawa wapate ajira kwanza.
I have confessed I am a scientist and I am a bit slow. I want you to explain to me in this proposal. You have said that in this proposal we will have the president with his running mate deputy president. They will win or we have candidates, they will win an election, and then the president will appoint the prime minister and the 2 deputies from the winning coalition, and then we will have the runner-up being the leader of opposition. Now, so what happens to the whole NASA brigade together with Musalia and all these other people?
Na wauliza Banana na Karuri, nyinyi mnataka tupange katiba kwanza tubadilishe ama tubadilishe uchumi kwanza?
Ruto's doublespeak now turns the attention of the country to the illegal cabinet administrative secretary positions casts that are being eyed by many Kenya Kwanza loyalists, as the regime appears to be geared more towards rewarding political rejects and friends.
Hey, Mr. This guy is a conman. This guy is what we call in English a snake's oil salesman. Huyu ni mtu ambaye anaweza kuuzia mafuta akwambie ni mafuta inatoka kwa nyoka na ununue. Because you listen to the statements that this guy is giving and you realize that Kenyans voted for a conman. I am not afraid. This is on record. This guy is a conman. Huyu ni mtu ambaye alidanganya Kenyans ya kwamba yeye anapinga katiba, kubadilisha katiba kwa sababu anapenda mwananchi na anajali mwananchi. When he goes into that office, he turns around and starts saying that we need an opposition leader And because he knows that it is an illegal office, which Kenyans do not want to fund, he takes the shortcut route because he has bought people in parliament. So the easiest way he can do is, instead of putting this thing to the referendum, so that Wananchi, the so-called Wanjiko and Otieno and Atieno, can decide if they feel that they need to fund another office of the opposition leader, he takes this thing because he want to bypass the constitutional requirement of establishment of this office, if by any chance it happens to come to being. He wants now to use the National Assembly, which we have seen him crisscrossing the country kila mahali. Anazunguka Western, anaongea, anasema huko tufanye kazi pamoja na MPs wa Western, anazunguka Central, tufanyeni kazi pamoja. But in real sense, he wants to take that opportunity so that he can, change the constitution and entrench the so-called office of the opposition, and I don't know, CDF, and I don't know, oversight fund ya Senate, all these things. Sisi swali tunataka kuuliza ni hii. Wacha hata sisi tuseme we are scientists and we are slow kama yeye. Mimi sijui science yake ni gani. Let's assume we are scientists also and we are slow kama yeye. What will prevent him from changing the constitution to extend his term? If he can get that number to change the constitution, to plug in the official opposition leader and plug in these other small seats that he wants to put in the constitution, making sure that we have a 2/3 gender rule, I don't know, by appointing women, of which women nowadays in Kenya are getting elected. We have seen the biggest number of governors in the Kenyan history as women. They have fought for themselves to get elected into office. Women do not need any favors in Kenya. All they need is an equal platform, and they will fight for themselves. They have proved that. They are continuing to prove that. And it is happening every day. If you look at the number of women that have been elected into this parliament right now, compare with the previous parliament, you will accept and agree with us that the women of Kenya are electable. They know how to run a perfect campaign. So we do not need William Ruto to tell us how we are going to implement the 2/3 gender rule using unconstitutional means. In real sense, William Ruto is not interested about the office of the official opposition leader. He is not interested about entrenching the CDF into the constitution. He is not interested about the 2/3 gender rule. What William Ruto is doing is testing the waters, and when he succeeds to put even a comma in the constitution, then he's going to extend his term. That is what we know. And I plead with Kenyans, do not allow this man to do that. People fought so hard. He was the first person, together with some people, that came out to pinga this constitution. He said everything negative about this constitution. He talked about what were jinsia moja kuoana, which is not true. And right now, he's bringing himself as a messiah of this constitution. Kenyans should not allow that. Guru.
Habari yenu. If there was any evidence of Machiavellian politics, it is this that Kenya is going through right now. And in this new era, anything goes. I'm not surprised that Ruto is now suggesting we have constitutional reforms. It is strange that this is a man who has never fought for anything in this country. Nothing. In fact, he has always been on the other side, fighting against any change. But you know what? He's been the beneficiary of the same changes that he was fighting. Now, I agree with Makiandi 100%. There is something afoot that is being tried here in Kenya. That the hidden card is to find an avenue to bring about the changes he himself will want. And one of them is extension of his term so that he can hold on to the country for as long as he can. Well, I'm aware that he and during the BBI debates at Southern House, he and made suggestions of the kind of constitutional changes that you'd like to see. And one of them was that of a leader of the opposition. But then, when it is made in the context in which we are right now, it becomes even more suspicious. This man just a few weeks ago was vehemently opposed to anything to do with the opposition, the people on the other side, our competitors, and so on and so forth, that he has nothing to do with them. They should just accept they lost the elections. Those are the ones. What has changed? That is what Kenyans must ask themselves. What has changed now? Furthermore, the platform on which he won elections was that the youths lacked jobs, and the big people seemed to only be interested in tinkering with the constitution to create positions for themselves, and actually advanced the argument that what is required is economic transformation to give the millions of youth that do not have jobs before we embark on anything else that is constitutional reform or changes. How does Ruto take Kenyans? Because when you are in leadership position, you must show consistency of the kind of principles that you want in the society. You don't change by the whims or the season. Okay? So I want to say that this is very suspicious, and he could be throwing the country into a trap where we open a vent through which politicians will be tinkering with the constitution without going to the public. I think that we rejected a long time ago. If it is that issue of the leader of the opposition, perhaps Kenyans would want it, but bring it to the referendum. Let Kenyans make a decision by themselves. Let it not be seen, first of all, as his benevolence to answer the opponent, but as a Kenyan-driven need to seek checks and balances in government. Number two, the issue of CDF is even more murky. The truth of the matter is that the role of the parliament is very clear in the constitution, and the principle of separation of power is so entrenched in the constitution that you can do nothing about it. What do I mean? The role of the MP, that is the legislature, is to oversight, represent, okay, formulate the laws, and so on and so forth. Actually, there are mainly three roles. The role of the executive is to implement projects, period. So there is no way we can continue with an illegality which was corrected by the Supreme Court. There is no way MPs can be in charge of implementing projects, and then we talk about the principle of separation of power. Things do not work like that. You find MPs are fighting so that they can go carrying money in their boots of their vehicles. distributing to whoever they want, okay, to earn political mileage and power. This is an issue that was executed by the Supreme Court. They made their ruling that there is a role of the executive, there is a role of the legislature, there is a role of the judiciary. If CDF is to become a legal entity within the Kenyan context, it must be entrenched either through the county governments as a grant. The role of the MP is just to state which projects need to be done within his constituency. And then he cross-checks and oversights the county that the projects that he wanted done in his constituency have been done to the satisfaction, but not the role of the MP to go on the ground to even pick the implementers and give tenders. Then who is going to oversight who? This is where corruption gets entrenched in our system. So therefore, this attempt to try to circumvent the constitution for convenience purposes, and Mr. Iya is a lawyer, can guide us, is one of the most misguided move that a government can make. CDF has been an illegality, period. There is no argument about that. Whichever name they give it, if the funds are given to the MP to go and implement projects, it is a violation of the constitution. Simple. What is it so hard that the Ministry of Education, through an arrangement, can be able to identify needy students and give them bursaries straight in their schools? What is this issue about MPs carrying checks in their vehicles to go and distribute to the parents of these children? It is actually subjecting the Kenyan people to indignity. There was a case where people slept outside in a point where the checks were to be given. People literally sleeping on the roadside, waiting for the MP to come carrying the checks for their children. Is that fair? I mean, what then is the role of the executive? They have so many systems through which they can, give out these social services. It's not just through the MP. That's a lie. It is not right what the MPs are trying to do, what the president is trying to do. It is a violation of the constitution. Separation of power is one of the strongest points of democracy because it introduces checks and balances in the system. That's why executives are held to account. Okay? The judiciary is there to deal with those who violate. But then what we are having in Kenya, today you can hardly go and find anything on the ground after so many years of CDF. Well, there are those who have used the CDF well, but still, that principle that an MP can go on the ground and implement projects is a violation of the constitution because it violates a key principle of separation of power. And that is what our MP should understand, and the president should understand. What they should be doing is to discuss and find ways in which they can continue pumping money in the constituencies without the participation of the MP. Let the work of the MP be to oversight and represent his people, not to implement projects. That is not their work, and they must know that. However, because of political convenience that is there, and the fact that our politics is corrupt, they would want a situation whereby in the use of that CDF money, you are also able to save for yourself, for your campaigns. That's what they do. That's what they do. By giving tenders to their relatives and friends who now pump the money back to their campaign kitty. This is bad. And then somebody here supports those kind of principles. It's bad. As for Musalia, Musalia has no ambition. In fact, I think he's been jumping from one personality to another, trying to find a route to the good days. He's coming out as a person with no principles at all, no leadership skills. He can't make it. He's how do you start talking of giving up your position in 2027? We are in 2022. I mean, that is lack of tact. Politicians don't give all their cards on the table. It is a round over. What if they fall out with the main principle? Where is he going to go after saying those kind of ones? In any case, I think these are people who have been well tutored in Nyayoism, where hero worship is the main thing. You want to please the principal holder of power so that you can get more goodies, which I think at the end of the day is totally detrimental to the country and its institutions. I believe in the next 5 years, Musalia will be a non-entity in the political arena. Let him not delude himself. It's as simple as that. He's been fixed and he knows it. So the rest said about him, the better. Thank you, Makiandi.
Thank you Guru. Wacha nipatie Chaka nafasi, naona kuna shida ya network, alafu tutaendelea na Benson. Thank you Guru for your submission. Chaka, naona ukiingia ukidrop. Acha nikupatie nafasi uongee kwanza.
Kwanza asante sana brother Makiadi kwa kunipa hii nafasi, na pia na ndugu zangu pale Stone PK, Moses, brother Mise, alafu mzee wangu hapo mzee Guru na brother Benson. Kwa kweli mimi niko poa, namshukuru Mungu, na nadhani pia na ndugu zangu nao ni vile vile upande wenu. Mimi sitakuwa mrefu wa maneno kwa sababu haya mambo Makiadi umeyamaliza. Na in fact umenipa jibu langu la jana nilokuwa nalo kwenye akili yangu, kufikiria tu hawa ndio wapinga waliopinga hawa ndio waliopinga BBI wakati ule. Vile vile wao jamaa zetu pande mwingine, wao ndio waliopinga katiba na wana track record ya kupinga tangia mwanzo mpaka sasa hivi ninavyozungumza. How comes leo hii uniambie kwamba nimekubali nikutengenezee ofisi ya prime minister hapo kikatiba kisheria, kwa hivyo wacha tupunguze hapa. Kama hukusi kule kunurambisha asali, ndani yake kuna shubiri. Upo mzee Misi hapo. Hivyo nadhani Makiadi umeliweka wazi hili jambo, na nashukuru hakaswa. Na wengi tu wa Kenya nataka tuelewe huu mchezo unachezwa namna gani. Hizi akili zinacheza namna gani? Na kwa nini sisi wengine tumeganda upande huu, hatuendi upande huu? Na kwa nini kila tukizungumzia tunazungumzia kuangalia tunapotoka ama tulipo sasa, na tunaangalia kesho, na vile vile tunaangalia kesho kutwa? Bora tumesimama upande huu. Makiadi brother, huku ndo kwenye uzima, huku ndo kwenye matumaini. Lakini sisi nasi tukimezwa tukirudi upande huu tukiungana, sidhani kama Kenya hii tunaipeleka wapi. So lazima tuzungumze ukweli, tushikane wa Kenya wote, tufikirie zaidi, tujaribu kuangalia jicho la tatu, tusiangalie tu hapa. Kwa hiyo ifisi hii ni propaganda. Akipata nafasi ya kuweza kubandika hiyo nafasi pale, atakuwa shamaliza. Sasa tu kwamba umenipa kazi. Mimi kama singekuwa ningekuwa, yani hiyo ni kampeni tu ya 2027. Hakuna kingine hapa. Na hapo ndo tunamalizwa na kama ningekuwa pengine mimi nina ubaguzi au na hivi. Kwa nini tengeneze ofisi ya nini? Si nimempa kazi. Watu ni long term na ile time limit nayo inaingia taratibu. Kufikia kabla 2032 hakika market tutakuwa tushamen. Hapa tunaongozwa kama tunavyoongozwa na Uganda, na hiyo ndio game plan ilipo. So for real, mwenye kusikia elewe kile ambacho amezungumza, na brother Guru kile ambacho amezungumza. Sitakuwa mrefu wa maneno, lakini tu brother Mise, hebu tueleze zaidi ni nini haswa hii game mko hapa, kwa sababu sioni ahadi, hakuna mwananchi, bado harama ya maisha ni ile ile, na kukicha kuna vitimbi hivi na hivi. Hizi game kuna nini haswa kinachopikwa ndani ya pazia?
Asante ndugu yangu Chaka. Nadhani umempatia ndugu yetu Mise kibarua kigumu sana cha kujaribu kutafsiri ni nini haswa kinachoendelea katika kikundi cha UDA ama ukipenda Kenya Kwanza. Manake Mise hana ujumbe wowote wa kile ambacho kinaendelea. Ni kama kumrushia ndege mawe ukitarajia kwamba hatatoroka. Ukiwa
lakini hayo nafikiri
mwambie arudi. Akishakitoka hapo mwambie arudi huko, atoke huko, tuwe na yeye huku, tutetee hawa vizazi vyetu na vinavyokuja, tusimame kwenye neema baba, tutoke huko kwa jamaa zetu huko. Ala,
nashukuru ndugu yangu Chaka Mdune, nashukuru. Najua kwa nafikiri brother Benson dakika moja tu, kwa sababu hapa nimenukuliwa kwamba sina ufahamu wowote wa maneno ambayo yanaendelea katika kule UDA, lakini nafikiri haswa njia mbadala ya kuzungumzia maneno inafaa kutoka kwangu, ama kwa kuhakikisha confirm kwamba sijui ama sielewi. Kwa hivyo hayo yote ndugu yangu Rich Makiadi ameyazungumzia ni ya kupigia debe tu kuharibu jina na ufahamu wangu kulingana na hii. Kwa hivyo kwa sababu sitaki kujibu hivi sasa, nataka tumruhusu ndugu yangu Benson. Chaka Mdune, shikilia hapo usije ukatoweka, nafikiri nitapatiana majibu. Asante.
Asante sana ndugu yangu Mise, kumradhi kwa yale nimesema kama yamekuudhi, lakini ningependa kusema kwamba katika tafuta jina hili ambalo linanipotea, katika kukutazama vile haswa katika wajua katika televisheni hii ya Mutembei, katika kukutazama kwa masuala ambayo yanaendelea katika serikali hii, ni uamuzi wangu kusema ya kwamba nina habari na nina hakika kwamba ni mengi ambayo yanaendelea katika serikali hii ambayo huyajui, huyafahamu na una habari kwa hakika ni nini kinachoendelea. Ni kama tu vile ndugu yetu Duke amekuja hapa na kutupatia maneno mazito ambayo tumemuuliza maswali yakatoweka. Lakini kwa vile uko hapa, nitakupatia nafasi ya kujibu maswali yake ndugu yetu Chaka. Kabla nikuje kwa ndugu Benson, nipatie tu dakika moja ni kuchezee video hapa moja peke yake, moja tu ya haraka fupi, alafu nafasi itakuwa ni yako sasa. Dakika moja tu peke yake. Kuna video ambayo ni ya maana hapa, itakuwa ni makosa sana kutowachezea hii.
Politics and Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi has condemned the move by Azimio principal Raila Odinga to call for anti-government, what he describes as anti-government meetings and demonstrations, saying it is time to support the government. Mudavadi, who remained behind in the Western region for one more day after President William Ruto concluded his two-day visit, is seen as seeking to further increase the president's support base in Western Kenya, and has further indicated that he will lead the region in supporting the president's re-election come 2027. Ibrahim Karanja kicks us off.
After accompanying President William Ruto for a working tour in Kakamega County on Thursday and Friday, Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi was today in his Vihiga backyard, where he attended an interdenominational prayer service at the Kidundu Stadium. The PCS dwelling on the need to unify the Western region and throw their collective support behind President William Ruto. This, he said, will ensure maximum benefits for the region that has for more than 10 years stayed without a leader of such national stature.
Hatuna nafasi ya kupoteza tena tukisukumana. Let us now close ranks na tuanze kuangalia development yetu itakuwa namna gani.
He also took issue with the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition side over its method of criticizing the government through anti-establishment meetings or demonstrations. Musalia's remarks, coming just a day after Azimio principal Raila Odinga stated that his cancellation of the planned parallel Jamhuri celebrations was not out of fear.
Sasa ukienda kufanya maandamano unasema nini? How? Wewe unasimama pahali unasema unataka urudishe subsidy ya mahindi, sijui urudishe subsidy ya nini, subsidy. Mimi nauliza tu swali moja. How will you finance those subsidies?
Mudavadi, who is currently the senior most official within the executive in the country, with President William Ruto's visit to Eritrea and Deputy President Rigathi Gachagwa's Angola trip, stating that Western region should support the president in 2027. He also called on people from his backyard to support him, as only that would guarantee his say in the Kenya Kwanza government.
The North Star is very clear. William Ruto is president. Now William Ruto is going to be president in the elections of 2027. Kwa hivyo usisimame hapa unauliza tena, show me the North Star, when the North Star is very clear. You will make me as strong as I can be in that government if we are united. Lakini mkiwa boy, basi nguvu zangu kwa serikali ya Ruto zitakuwa hafifu. Na zikiwa hafifu, wakati unaniuliza kazi nitafanyaje? Zikiwa hafifu, wakati unaniuliza maendeleo ya barabara nitafanyaje?
On Thursday, President William Ruto's meeting saw the attendance of key governors elected under the Azimio coalition, and his call for unity seemed to be the brief for his chief minister.
Unajua ndugu zangu, kuna sitaki nitumie hili jina kwa kama nionekane ni kama nina tusi mtu, lakini kuna ujinga mwingine ambao si wa kubandikiwa. Either unazaliwa nao ama ukikua unakuwa nao, yani you grow into it, some form of stupidity. Na mimi sijataja mtu jina, lakini usikie hiyo speech yenye imepewa pale. Unajua kuna MP mmoja anaitwa Kaliba Misi, wakati wa vetting wa PCS alimuuliza swali, wakati nilikuwa shuleni ulikuwa minister, na wakati nimekuja hapa kukufanyia vetting unatafuta kazi, na mimi nikiwa shuleni we ulikuwa minister na ulikuwa MP, saizi mimi ni MP na kuuliza maswali ili upewe kazi kama Prime Cabinet Secretary. Is it wrong to say you are a man without ambition? Are you a man without ambition? Musalia Mudavadi goigoi akazurura hapo, mwishowe hakujibu hiyo swali na akaondoka. Ndugu zangu ambao tumekusanyika siku ya leo hapa kwenye hii Mutembei TV channel, huyo ndio Musalia Mudavadi ambayo kwa wakati mmoja watu walikuwa nasema he is the safe pair of hands. Amesema wazi ya kwamba 2027 William Ruto atakuwa ndiyo rais, notwithstanding ya kwamba Kenya kunakuwa na election, notwithstanding ya kwamba kutakuwa na presidential election. He has declared that in 2027 William Ruto will be the president, and the only option that other people have is to stay behind Musalia Mudavadi so that he has a say in the government of William Ruto. So mimi nitawachia hapo, acha nimpatie ndugu yangu brother Benson aendelee kutoka hapo. Asante.
Habari zenyu, Makrich, Stone, Moses, Mise, Chaka and Guru. Kwanza kabisa Richi, umesema maneno ambayo mimi nilikuwa nataka kusema kuhusu Mudavadi, ambapo mbali mimi hata naona hata sijui hata niseme nini. Lakini jambo moja ambalo sema kwamba mimi nimegundua ni kwamba Kenya bado hatuna uongozi. Kwa sababu kitu cha kwanza lazima tujue kwamba maandamano, kama maandamano mtu anaenda katika maandamano, imanishi kuwa hajapenda nchi yake ama hajapenda maendeleo ambayo inaendelea. Lakini maandamano ni njia ambazo kuonesha kuwa hauridhishwi jinsi uongozi upo ama venye vitu ambazo zinafanyika. So Mudavadi ni kama labda sijui naweza kusema kwamba ameingia mpaka sijui uongo yenye ilikuwepo ambapo tunaona imemuingilia pia, unaona. Anyway, let me just move from Kiswahili a bit and talk about what Mudavadi has said. One thing that Mudavadi has to realize, that you don't have to kind of like make your people be behind you to get development from the government. That is not how it works. So it means if his people are not like even like sharing his ideology, which means he might not get development from the government. That is what he's saying, the way he talks. And another thing about Mudavadi about 2027 is you know, politics, you never know what might happen between now and 2027. We still have like almost 5 years, and 5 years in a span of politics, so many things do happen. And based on the history of like Kenyan politics, whereby you see the formation of these political parties, they're just formed for the basis to achieve a certain goal, then after which it breaks. We saw how Jubilee came, and we also saw CORD, how it comes. So he should think on that line, and like he should not just say that he will be the president. Things can change. Yeah, there are so many people who might come in, and there are so many people who good leaders or like leaders who have the interests of the country. And to me, what I can say about all this is like we still need leaders. I don't think like we've reached a point in our country whereby we have people that we can believe in them, because like they are driven by greed. They're not driven by the things that affect the common man. Because like if they were driven by those things that affect the Kenyan people, I don't think like somebody would have been talking on how all his community should rally behind him to so that he can have a say in government, also that they can get all this development. You know, he could have been telling us as the premier, the way he is, he could have been telling us how the government is going to provide, or how government is planning to lower the prices of food, how government is planning to, like, just to give us a blueprint of what government is going to do. So that one disqualifies some of the people that we think are our leaders. They don't meet, for me, they don't meet the criteria of leaders. They meet the criteria of people who just want to benefit themselves and their family. That is what I can say.
Haya, asante ndugu yangu Benson. Naona Stone pekee amenyamaza sana, lakini kuna watu wanasema huko huwa atupati, we don't recognize what William Ruto's government has done so far, the likes of Missy and our friend Black. I think when they do something good, I normally say hiyo wamefanya mzuri. Na leo pia kwa mara nyingine ninataka kumshukuru Nabii na mwenzake Deputy Nabii kwa kuwezesha Wakenya kuenda Eritrea bila visa. So Mise, kama unasikia ni kama umechoka na maisha Kenya imekuwa ngumu, unaweza hamia Eritrea huko, you don't need a visa. So that's a development ambayo tunaweza sema Nabii amefanya, kando na ile yenye Uhuru Kenyatta alikuwa ameinitiate ya South Africa ambayo ilitimia wakati Nabii amechukua kiti. Kuna hii nyingine ambaye imetokea jana majuzi wakati ameelekea Eritrea. So Mise, ukisikia kama maisha ya Kenya imekuwa ngumu sana kwako, we ingia ndege tu, all you need is a passport, na uende ukaishi Eritrea kwa miezi kama 3, alafu urudi nyumbani uone kama unga itakuwa imeshuka. So that's something that we should commend the government for. I will come to you Mise. Wacha kwanza tupatie Stone PK nafasi pia yeye akusalimie, najua hujasikia sauti yake leo, then we'll move on.
Santi Richi. Ndugu Mise ndiye hakuwa mbeleni, karibu sana, asante sana, nice to see bwana Nguru. Chaka ndugu yangu Chaka Mdume iko pale basi, nafurahi kukuona Bro Benson. Mimi hebu niseme kwamba ni kweli, kumbe namna watu walivyokuwa wakifanya mzaha, huo mzaha umegeuka kuwa ndio ile sasa shida ambayo tutapata na ndio itatumaliza. Watu walifanya mzaha Kenya kwanza, ikawa Kenya kwisha. It is true, it is Kenya kwisha. It is the beginning of the end of our beautiful country Kenya, unfortunately. And I have no reservation when saying that. It is the process, and in fact this death should have been slow, but now it's being cut. Yani inasukumwa kabisa, Kenya ipige magoti, tuanze kutapika damu as soon as possible. Tumefinywa jugular vein, tumefinywa kabisa, na hivi ndio kweli sasa Wakenya wale ambao tunasema wajinga walikwisha, sasa ndio tunataka kuona kama kuna werevu Kenya. Manake mtu mwerevu huwa anajua wakati ananyongwa na hewa oxygen inamalizwa. Ikiwa wewe ni mpumbavu, basi you will not know, you just die like the way carbon kills. Ruto is suffocating us. Ruto is actually anatumaliza. Ruto anatoa nchi yote kafara. Sasa sijui atabaki na nini ama atabaki na nani. When you look at everything that is happening, it's happening at the speed that has never happened in this country. I don't want to repeat about the constitution and all this, because I don't associate Ruto with any constitution, because he doesn't believe in it. Kwa hivyo hata chochote ati kuzungumza Ruto anabadilisha katiba na nini, Ruto habadilishi katiba. Ruto haamini katiba iliyoko. Ruto anaweka mkataba wake tu, he just pretending, but he already has decided exactly what he wants. It's written in some foolscaps. All what you are seeing ni ile tu au mbwa wake wa mkono wafanye hiyo, inaitwa tu window dressing, pretending to be participating, sijui parliament, sijui what. And that is the worst knife that is being pierced onto Kenya, right from behind, up back kwa spine, through the heart. And I don't think Kenya will survive. And that's the truth. And that's the truth. The mutilation of this document, which he does not believe in, the mutilation, rather the destruction of the judiciary, because he knows. And this is where people should congratulate Ruto. Ruto began to destroy all what he feels would hinder or question his moves. And that is Nyayo philosophy. 24 years, Ruto was in it. Aliingia immediately na hiyo script. Right from grassroots all the way to the top. Ruto has destroyed kila kitu na ameweka check. Ruto immediately came akakwambia kutakuwa na parallel chiefs na sub chiefs and all that, and they will be the ones to check, mark my word, check on what is happening. That is pure Nyayo philosophy. When you would even ukiachimua kwako nyumbani pale kwa village, Ruto is being told fulani akai vizuri. That was the language yao hao watu wa Nyayo. Stone PK anaonekana akai vizuri, then the following day you disappear. That is right from the village. That's why he created this useless squad na akasema empower the chiefs. So now they are so powerful, they will be running and managing their affairs from village level. Then of course come and dismantle the parliament. Una destroy parliament kabisa. And that's why I'll keep on saying our MPs are useless. Azimio MPs ni bure kabisa. Actually, they are yani ni bure wako pale kwa matumbo yao. I'm insisting, if they are really with mwananchi, they should resign jana, watoke jana kwa hiyo serikali. They quit, walk out en mass. Acha Ruto afanye kile atakachofanya. I'll keep on singing that. Let Ruto do whatever he wants to do. Other than them being there, ambapo sasa itakuwa ndio wanaweka rubber stamp. Afadhali sasa waondoke kabisa. Na hata baba naye naona amelala, nafikiria amefukishwa hiyo dawa ya nani, hiyo dawa ya urogi ya Kenya Kwanza. Hata sijui hizi matrip za US, amekuja US kufanya nini? It's useless. Baba has fallen into the trap. Okay? So all of them, they are gone, they are finished. Ruto amewamaliza kabisa. What interest is Kenya with the US right now? Ati sijui baba atafanywa kuzunguka dunia tu kisha atachoka, shazeeka. Yeah? So instead of baba calling out mass exodus kutoka kwa hiyo bunge, avunje bunge ya hiyo. Talk of opposition. What is opposition? Kenya tulikuwa na opposition, tukaona ni upumbavu uko pale. Your opposition to do what? Ati to check the government. Where? In Kenya. When has the government ever been checked? Ukicheck unafanya wasifanye nini? You'll be checking Ruto not to do what? Upumbavu mtupu wa Kenya. And then they will just put a stooge there. Mkipiga kelele mnaambua opposition iko. Then who is this advocating for opposition? Arab Samoei Ruto. Wallahi billahi. Ni kama kutuma nyang'au kwenye your shed mahali mbuzi wako, alafu unamwambia ati sasa akae pale achunge ndio kusije kukawa na shida yote. Ati wewe nyang'au tafadhali linda huo mlango, mbuzi mmoja kondoo moja asiondoke pale. That is the garbage that Kenyans are being given. Mchana we are being conned, akia Mungu, wananchi wa Kenya. 50 million Kenyans. I'm not blaming the children. Wazee wazima, wazee akina Raila sasa. Yani we are being conned by this conman. Yani tumevukishwa ile lala, ile nini ya kulala unono. We are sleeping. Na tunajiita wa Kenya ni werevu, wa Kenya tupo. Tunapiga tu, Ruto anajua mtapiga tu nduru, mnapiga kelele. Amechinja kila kitu. Amechinja kila kitu. Listen to what Mudavadi sasa ati and you know Kenyans ndio nakwambia sisi ni wajinga. Wanapiga makofi pale Mudavadi. Waluya pia muna mambo. Ati Mudavadi anasimama pale kusema he's giving up 2027. Yaani ana kiti chake cha urais ambacho kilikuwa nani alimwambia angekuwa rais. Mudavadi can never be a president anyway. Even he can't lead a cattle dip. And the good thing, the most beautiful thing about Kenya kwisha now. Wakati umefika, kila kitu kinakwisha. Mudavadi ana ujinga wake umekuja. Unasimama ati unasema maandamano. Alikuwa akifanya nini kwenye NASA? Mudavadi is just like hata si mkokoteni ama wheelbarrow. At least wheelbarrow inabeba simiti. Unajua wheelbarrow, where you park it is where you'll find it. Yani usipoisukuma, usipoipeleka haiendi popote. For him politically, and this is what we've been saying, he cannot even unapewa ofisi Kenya huko railways kwa mabogi, and you still believe you are supreme, sijui prime minister at vitu ambazo they don't exist, and you are there shamelessly going to address Kenyans. Kenya kuisha kweli. Lastly, let me say this. When we talk of the destruction, it's so deep that Kenyans need to know that haikuanza leo, and therefore for us to remove, it's just like when you have a totally rotten tooth. You go to the dentist and then you start saying, you know, hii jino, anakuambia this jino imeoza yote na sasa itaanza kuinfect gum yako, and ikianza hivyo the germ will even start going to the brain. Then bado uko pale unasema sasa, daktari tafadhali hebu tuone kama tunaweza liosha hivi, give me, you know, for some time and all this. Na uchungu unao, daktari anakuambia niking'oa mara moja utapona. Wewe unataka kubuy time. That's what Kenyans are doing. Kenyans are saying tumpe sijui na. How do you give fisi time? Fisi ameingia kwenye boma lako, unampa muda akufanyie nini? So we should decide again. I repeat this. Kenyans should decide. Give up. Ruto aendelee because amewaweza, ama you pindua. You chase him out. Because if you don't chase him out, then you just sit. Tukamuliwe kabisa. Mambo ni mawili tu. There is no alternative. Don't even start saying 2027. Do you know 2027? How you cannot. Hata mkikaa chini. What are the strategies? Yani mkae 2027 ni Ruto apeane sword. I keep on asking this. Do you ever imagine Ruto giving out a sword that he may hand over even to that Gachagua or whoever it will be? Ruto, Arab Samoei, apeane uongozi. Mwizi wa ng'ombe kule Pokot, umewahi kusikia ati ng'ombe zile walizokuwa wameiba wameregesha? Unakuja Makiadi, ng'ombe zako 20 unaitiwa, bwana Makiadi, tumekuja kurudishia ng'ombe zako zile tuliiba jana. Have you ever heard that? These are cattle raiders. They believe in stealing. And he's the captain of that. He stole this election. He stole the presidency. Then you are waiting at 2027. At 2027. My friend, Ruto will stay there. Muliona ya Moi 24 years. Hii ngoja muone. Mutajua hamjui. Si alisema hivyo? Mutajua hamjui. Baba ameanza kutii. Anazunguka dunia doing useless work. Ati fighting for Africa, sijui infrastructure nini na nini. Useless thing when Kenya is burning. He has fallen. Kwisha. Kenya kwisha. Wacha nifike hapo manake bado nitakuja. Kenya finished.
Aya, Stone PK, asante sana. Acha kwanza naona ni nani alikuwa sawa, nimepata laini. Okay. Dakika moja tu kwanza, kuna kitu hapa lazima niwachezee. Unajua hizi video saa nyingine zinatupatia mada.
Review to the World Bank's proposal seeking to increase contribution to the National Social Security Fund, or NSSF, saying while the government and the World Bank target low-hanging fruits, there are many other ways to mobilize resources domestically. And as Citizen TV's Ayub Abdikadir reports, the move by Kenya's largest multilateral lender aligns with President William Ruto's call to review upwards monthly contributions to the kitty.
The proposal by the World Bank seeking reforms at the National Social Security Fund, NSSF, aligns with President William Ruto's call for higher NSSF contributions. At the moment, employees contribute Kenya shillings 200 a month to the NSSF kitty. But through the NSSF Act of 2013, the government had sought to increase the monthly contributions by 6% of one's gross monthly income, with employers expected to match the same. President Ruto has been pushing for a better saving plan to end what he says is the country's begging bowl culture. But this saving plan ran into headwinds, with the High Court in September stopping any bid by the government to increase the NSSF monthly contributions. In fact, the court ruled that the contributions to the fund should be voluntary. Economists are now raising questions about the latest move by the World Bank to back the increased contributions to the kitty. But what influence does the World Bank, which is Kenya's largest multilateral lender, have on policy direction of the government?
There are better ways the World Bank can advise the government to mobilize domestic resources. Our cabinet secretaries, 24 of them, declared a total worth of 15.1 billion Kenya shillings. That's just 24 people. They have 15 point something, give or take, billion Kenya shillings. A 1% wealth tax on an annual basis would mobilize about 150 million from that.
In its advisory notice, the World Bank says the current 200 Kenya shillings is not enough, coupled with the cost of operation, and that to create a more enabling environment for retirement savings, the government should amend the NSSF Act of 2013 to allow higher contributions while enforcing stricter regulations of administrative costs incurred by NSSF to facilitate better returns on pension savings.
So I think it's just to say that Kenyans, especially the Kenyans in the formal sector, are heavily taxed, and their salaries is also deducted with a lot of things. Increasing NSSF would not be probably the most prudent thing. I think there are plenty of low-hanging fruits from just tax law and tax administration that can actually enable the government to mobilize enough resources. Let's start with the wealth tax.
In September, President William Ruto said, "We will work closely with Parliament to create a framework that Kenya will be safe in, so that we can leave an inheritance to our children. Remember, we are doing this because saving is a must," said the president. But how does one access his savings upon retirement?
And we have people who have finished, they've retired, they're still chasing their money at NSSF. So it strains credibility as well about where is our money going and is it being put in the right investments, and how easy is it to access this money without chasing it until you die before you access your pension savings.
The latest policy advice by the World Bank comes amid sweeping austerity measures by the government put in place seeking budget cuts on foreign travels, training, purchase of furniture and motor vehicles.
Actually, you can rationalize and say actually the NSSF contributions that people are making now are very, very low. And then on the sense that we want to make sure that people are securing their old age, that makes absolute sense. But then is that the only path of domestic resource mobilization? So it should not be looked at as the only hope for the government to raise resources or to have a pot where they can go and borrow.
Austerity move by the government seeks to cut off 300 billion Kenya shillings from the current 2022-2023 financial year's budget. Ayub Abdikadir.
Maneno yangu mawili kwa hiyo video, na ndio maana nimeicheza. Jambo la kwanza ni kitu tunashinda tukiambiwa austerity measures, ya kwamba serikali inajaribu kuokoa 300 billion kutoka kwa budget ambayo inatumika, ambayo ni zile pesa ambazo zinatumika na wafanyikazi wa serikali kiholela. Na swali langu na shangaa ni kwamba ni kitu gani ambacho hiki wanafanya? Kila siku tunawaona hawa jamaa wakizunguka. Juzi nimeona naibu wa nabii akiwa kule Angola ameenda kuangalia bei ya carrots. Akasema ya kwamba Kenya inafaa kuwa ina export carrots to Angola, na akarudi akiwa na mke wake. Hiyo ndio safari ambayo ilikuwa impeleka huko. Na nimeona sasa wamekuwa ni kama sarakasi Stone PK. Unajua hii serikali ya huyu jamaa saa nyingine naangalianga. Sasa na sipendi kuongea juu ya watoto wa wanasiasa, lakini kwa vile tumeona wakifanya lazima tuseme. Mtoto mmoja hapa wa mwanasiasa mashuhuri sana anasema ya kwamba alikuwa anauza smoky akiwa sijui ni Strathmore ili apate pocket money. na tunajua vizuri kabisa ya kwamba babake ameiba mashamba mpaka akakuwa bilionea. Ni mwizi wa mashamba, ni mwizi wa pesa, ameshtakiwa mara mingi sana. Sasa sisi wa Kenya tuseme sisi ndio wajinga tulibaki ama nini? Kama huyu msichana mdogo anaona sisi ni wakumbafu ya kwamba atatuambia kwamba alikuwa anauza smoke ili aweze kutosheleza mahitaji yake, ni sawa sawa. Hiyo ni point ya kwanza. Point ya pili, but that was aside, that was besides the point. Point yangu ya muhimu kwa hii ni what is all of a sudden this thing about World Bank and this control that it has over our government? Why is the World Bank so much concerned about how much Bro Benson is putting into the NSSF for his retirement? Unatoana wapi na World Bank? Unajua vitu zingine tunafaa tujiulize, is this the control? Hii ndio ile capture tulikuwa tunasikia, state capture, ya kwamba hii serikali imekamatwa na hawa majasusi hawa mabwenyenyi wa kutoka nje ambao wanawakopesha pesa, ya kwamba pia wanawapatia mpaka policies, wanasema kama uwezi weka hizi pesa tutakupatia pesa fulani. Is this where we are right now? Yes, Guru.
Richie, I don't know how well you know the Nyayo era. What we are now doing is retrogressing to that Nyayo era, where the World Bank and the IMF used to breathe on our neck on every small aspect of our life. They dictated how many people are to be sacked, how many are to be employed, what contributions you made to the NSSF, what taxation will go to in which sector, and so on and so forth. And what came out of that period was a very oppressive kind of economic regime where nothing was actually growing. In terms of business, in terms of industries, in fact, the industries collapsed when these people are around strongly. You are very much aware of the structural adjustment programs that they put in here. They killed our cooperatives, they killed our industries. Textile industry went down that time. The leather industry went down that time. The coffee was on its knees.
Umesahau Guru, umesahau the enzi ya golden handshake. Unajua ile kitu, unakumbuka ile kitu ilikuwa inaitwa golden?
Precisely, that's what I'm talking about. That they will determine even how many people you are going to employ and how many you are going to sack. We are treading on a very, very dangerous economic, platform where we will not be able to determine as Kenyans what we want. It is other people to determine what they want us to do. That is very serious, because I think IMF and World Bank have this the tendency, when they give you money, they ask you, where are you going to get the money to pay us? And then if it is fuel, they tell you, put 16% on every liter of fuel that is consumed. They do the mathematics and see how many liters you consume in a month, in a year, and then they are able to say that they will get their own payment done. It does not matter how many people are going to get injured along the way. That is how ruthless these guys are. Right now, the electricity charges have started going up again. Those who are Kenyans understand what I'm talking about here. The bills for electricity have started going up again. Number two, we have been told by this God-ordained government that they are now bringing PPPs in providing irrigation water. What does that mean? It means where PK is coming from and water has been tapped and taken for irrigation. He knows very well, mostly that water is nearly free. in some circumstances, even it is totally free. But now, when you have a private practitioner right inside an irrigation scheme, what does that mean? It means bills, because the private person is not a philanthropist, is an investor who wants to recoup. So therefore, it is correct to say that when we have policies dictated from outside, they are insensitive, sometimes unpracticable, and actually end up injuring the very same people that they are meant to assist. Look at the food policy, what we have right now. The removal of food subsidy. Do these people care that people are sleeping hungry? No, they don't. What they care about is that maybe the 92 billion that they give us, they'll be able to get back their returns. Nothing else matters to them. Well, right now we are at the center of what I would call push and pull between the East and the West.
Guru ameamua namna gani? Nadhani anapigiwa simu, ni kama simu yake inaingia. Wacha tutarudi kwake. Misi alikuwa ameinua mkono.
Nilikuwa tu nataka kumulai ama kusema kwamba kwanza kabisa nimpongeze Stone PK kwa yale matamshi ameyatoa leo. Haya sasa ndio matamshi ya true revolution. Nafurahi sana ndugu yangu Stone PK. Hao watu wafagiliwe wote, wamulikwe wote. Sasa hapo ndio tutaanza kuwa na mazungumzo mazuri. Tukianza kuangalia kupitia lenses kama hizo umetumia katika mazungumzo yako leo, katika huu mjadala, nafikiri ni maneno mazuri. So I think for me what you are suggesting is good, that when we look at our leaders, they are compromised, and when we get to a point where our leaders are compromised, it means nchi yetu pia iko compromised. So tunataka viongozi imara ambao watakaposimama na kufanya yale ambao ni mambo ama kuchukua mwelekeo ambao ni wa kujenga nchi. Hivi kwamba lakini ningependa kumpongeza Musalia Mudavadi, jinsi nilivyosema kwamba nakubaliana naye kwamba hivi sasa lazima sisi zote tufute kwa pamoja, viongozi kwa viongozi, wananchi kwa wananchi, ili kuhakikisha kwamba lengo letu si kuvuta kando, ni kufuta kwa pamoja na kulijenga nchi yetu. Kwa hivyo Stone PK na kupongeza, na nafikiri tukifuta moja kwa moja, bega kwa bega, bako kwa bako, kwa pamoja, nafikiri tukitembea hivyo, nafikiri ule ubinafsi utatoka. Mara mingi tunaona tofauti iliyopo kwa nchi zingine ambazo mmezizungumzia hapa. Nchi zingine zinafikiria, viongozi wanafikiria kwa visasi vichavyo, wale visasi vya mbele, na jinsi watakapotengeneza rasilimali ili hivyo visasi vikifika wapate kustaarabu kwa sababu ya ile misingi viongozi wameweka. Lakini nilikuwa nataka kusema kwamba jana tulipata kukutana na how do we call ambassador katika lugha ya Kiswahili, the Kenyan
Balozi.
So balozi wa Kenya ku nchi ya Canada, jana tulikuwa na mkutano jana, na akaleta ujumbe na nikafurahi sana kwamba for the first time balozi alituelezea kwamba serikali ya Kenya imefanya mipango hivi kwamba balozi amekuwa akienda in Canada tunatumia provinces, inatoka mkoa kwa mkoa mwingine kutengeneza uhusiano wa nchi ya Kenya na nchi ya Canada, hili nasi tupate nafasi ya kuwasiliana na nchi ya Canada. Kwa mfano nchi ambayo inaitwa Mexico na nchi ambazo zingine za South American huwa zinaleta watu ambao wanafanya kazi shambani, alafu wanakuja kwa